The pioneering Argentine intellectual Victoria Ocampo first encountered Count Hermann von Keyserling in 1929 in the Hôtel des Reservoirs, Versailles. It was a moment both of them would struggle to understand for the rest of their lives. Keyserling was born in 1880 and had acquired a following as an erudite aristocrat in exile. After he lost his family estate in the Russian Revolution of 1918, he settled in Germany with his wife, the granddaughter of Otto von Bismarck. They lived there until Keyserling's death in 1946. Keyserling's best-known work, The Travel Diary of a Philosopher, describes his philosophical responses to the places and people he encountered while on the road in Europe and Asia in 1911. In 1920, the Grand Duke Ernst Ludwig von Hessen invited Keyserling to open a school of wisdom at Darmstadt, Germany, to advocate a renewal of spirit in order to regenerate mankind after the calamities of the First World War. Keyserling invited notable thinkers such as Paul Tillich, Hermann Hesse, Richard Wilhelm, and C.G. Jung to address contemporary European problems of spirit by looking to wisdom traditions from other cultures. Victoria Ocampo was a cultural icon both in her native Argentina and in Europe throughout the 20th century. The magazine Sur that she founded in 1931, together with the publishing company Sur 2 years later, acted as a bridge between South American and North American intellectuals and their fellow thinkers in Europe. Born in 1890 to one of the wealthiest Argentine families, Ocampo used her power and her fortune to promote culture on 3 continents, and she was instrumental in publishing in Spanish not only Jung and Keyserling, but also Aldous Huxley, Paul Valéry, Virginia Woolf, Marguerite Yourcenar, Albert Camus, Graham Greene, and many others. She would become the first woman elected to the Argentine Academy of Letters. In 1927, Ocampo initiated an intense exchange of letters with Keyserling, whose work she had read and greatly admired. In January 1929, she arrived in Paris, paid for his room in the Versailles Hotel he had chosen, and tended devotedly to his many demands. But their first encounter proved to be so riddled with misunderstandings that Keyserling turned to Jung, hoping that the analyst might offer analytic interpretations and advice. Later, in spite of their falling out, Ocampo brought Keyserling to South America on a trip that led to his writing South American Meditations. Soon afterwards, she put an end to all contact with him. Ocampo was appalled by the views Keyserling expressed in South American Meditations. She realized that the Count had toured South America as her guest, projecting his European psyche on everything and perceiving almost nothing. He had transcribed anecdotes about Argentina that she had shared with him, and then presented them in the book, distorted beyond recognition as his own insights. And animating the book was what he called the South American Spider-Woman, Keyserling's expression for his negative experiences of Ocampo herself. Jung emphatically advised Keyserling against publishing the book unless he extensively revised it. In spite of Jung's opinion, Keyserling published it in 1932. In 1934, Ocampo would write to Jung requesting a meeting, ostensibly to discuss publishing his book Psychological Types in Spanish. Though she suspected Keyserling and Jung had spoken about her, she hoped to work analytically with Jung. But her meeting with Jung at his Kusnacht house in October turned out to be frustratingly brief. Jung agreed to see her for a few minutes between patients. It was the only time they met face to face. Later, Ocampo published an account of the meeting in the newspaper La Nación of Buenos Aires. Much later, in 1951, Keyserling's widow published posthumously her husband's memoirs, and included chapters on Ocampo and Jung. Both Jung and Ocampo found themselves arguing in print with the persistent ghost of a dead man. As Keyserling's memoirs attested, Keyserling remained fascinated by Ocampo to the end, and felt that in his collision with her he had experienced everything a man could possibly experience, quote unquote, the whole history of creation. As to Jung, Keyserling described him in the memoirs as not only psychologically, mythologically, and theologically, but humanistically the most educated man of his time. To understand how the encounter in Versailles affected Keyserling's views of both Ocampo and South America, and to see the affinities between the philosopher and the psychoanalyst, it helps to go back to Ocampo's first letters to Keyserling, and to the moment when Keyserling wrote to Jung asking for help, predicting that Ocampo will be one of the strongest and strangest personalities of the 20th century, the woman who was everything, as Jorge Luis Borges somewhat ironically called her.